There are a lot of book to movie character changes for The Lord of the Rings, and some good, some bad. Aragorn is much more kingly in the book. Frodo is a lot braver and just a lot more capable. And Gimli is almost unrecognizable. But one character that I think they actually capture the essence of in the film is Merry. Now, like any adaptation, even a well-adapted character in a movie will only have a fraction of the depth that they do in the book. And Merry kind of falls in line with that idea. He's great in the movie, so much better in the book. I really, again, do love him in the movie, but in the book he is just such a more incredible character who is much more articulate and brave and self-conscious and lonely and just a much better character all in all. He still holds what I would probably consider my favorite line in the entire series so far. And I say so far because I'm reading it for the first time and I'm publishing my thoughts and video essays. If you just kind of want my own organized thoughts and you just kind of want to vicariously live through me who is reading it for the first time. So make sure you subscribe if you want more of this. I'm planning on doing some other series like A Song of Ice and Fire and Narnia and Dune and just some of these other really, really good books out there. So make sure you subscribe. But the Merry line that I love comes in the beginning of this entire story, in the Conspiracy Unmasked chapter, which I still actually think is one of my favorite chapters in this entire story. I love that chapter so much. Let me know in the comments what your favorite chapter is. But this moment comes when Frodo is trying to tell the other hobbits that he's leaving and he's about to go on his journey with the ring and he wants to do it alone. Merry chimes in. You can trust us to stick to you, through thick and thin, to the bitter end. And you can trust us to keep any secret of yours, closer than you keep it yourself. But you cannot trust us to let you face trouble alone, and go off without a word. We are your friends, Frodo. Anyway, there it is. We know most of what Gandalf has told you. We know a good deal about the ring. We are horribly afraid, but we are coming with you. Or following you like hounds. I think this just shows how much more loyal he is to Frodo in the book. And in my entire reading so far, there really hasn't been that much written from the perspective of Merry. We've gotten some good moments of Merry, but nothing is really from his straight perspective, so we haven't gotten to know him like we've gotten to know some of the other characters. That is until the third chapter of The Return of the King, in the chapter titled The Muster of Rohan. In this chapter, Theoden is mustering his troops on his march to Minas Tirith. And this whole chapter is essentially just hanging out with Merry as they prep. But in the beginning of this chapter, it kind of sets you up to feel the deep loneliness and homesickness of Merry, which I want to talk about in a little bit. It's a smart thing to do for Tolkien because that makes the good moments that come after this even better, and they almost hurt a little bit more because of the loneliness that Merry experiences. But Merry does look at the mountains around him and he thinks he loved the mountains, or he had thought he had loved them, marching on the edge of stories brought from far away. But now he was borne down by the insupportable weight of Middle-earth. He longed to shut out the immensity in a quiet room by a fire. All the same, he had been lonely, and never more so than now at the day's end. He wondered where in all this strange world Pippin had got to, and what would become of Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. Then suddenly, like a cold touch in his heart, he thought of Frodo and Sam. I am forgetting them, he said reproachfully to himself. And yet, they are more important than all the rest of us. And I came to help them, but now they must be hundreds of miles away, if they are still alive. He shivered. Now, the very first time we are let into his mind is a series of depressing paragraphs. This is the very, very beginning that we get into his mind. He seems like he kind of just wants to go home here. And he just wants to be with his friends. And I think that the question that comes after this is, what will he do? Will he turn around on his pony and head back toward the Shire? Or will he march to war? A place that he really doesn't belong. And in the next few pages, Merry kind of makes up his mind for what he needs to do. Because in a really beautiful moment in the book, Theoden kind of becomes his, I would say, kind of like his grandfather. And this moment is Tolkien being a bit cruel to us as well, because there is a burgeoning relationship between Theoden and between Merry. That is such a great section in this book. It's one of my favorite sections. And this character kind of lets us down in a few pages, which I will get there for why I was so bummed out in my first reading. But the group is talking about where Aragorn just went and why he took the paths of the dead. And this is what Merry decides after they have this conversation. The paths of the dead, he muttered to himself. The paths of the dead. What does all this mean? They have all left now. They have all gone to some doom. Gandalf and Pippin to war in the east, and Sam and Frodo to Mordor, and Strider and Legolas and Gimli to the paths of the dead. But my turn will come soon enough, I suppose. I wonder what they are all talking about, and what the king means to do. For I must go where he goes now. But then, it's a great moment, but in a hilarious note, the next sentence says, in the midst of these gloomy thoughts, he suddenly remembered that he was very hungry, and he got up to go and see if anyone else in this strange camp felt the same. He is a hobbit, through and through, and he resolves that he must go with Theoden wherever Theoden goes. Merry will go wherever he goes. But first, he's a little bit hungry. And so now the entire group meets for a meal, but the Red Arrow comes by way of an errand rider. Now, if you don't know what the Red Arrow is, it's like the real way that Rohan was summoned and told to fight. They are mustering the Rohirrim right now on Gandalf's orders because Pippin looked into the Palantir, but the beacons were not really for Rohan. They were for the surrounding cities and fiefs of Gondor. They were Gondorian cities. And there was one beacon, it said in the book, that was on like the border of Rohan, but I don't necessarily think that was all the way toward Edoras or Helm's Deep, as that's much further into Rohan. So maybe the appendices will tell me that the beacons actually did go as far as Rohan, or did go as far as Edoras, but those beacons were really for the surrounding fiefs, and this little red arrow was for Rohan. And after they're talking, they talk about the paths of the dead, and Merry just chimes in and asks what these paths are. And the entire group talks about how dark it is and how foolish it was for Aragorn to take those paths and how he likely won't come back. They're almost trying to scare Merry straight. And the meal goes on, and this is the end conversation. With that, the king stood up, and they all rose. Go now, each to your rest, he said, and sleep well. And you, Master Meriadoc, I need no more tonight, but be ready to my call as soon as the sun is risen. I will be ready, said Merry, even if you bid me ride with you on the paths of the dead. Now, Merry knows now how dangerous the paths are, but because of his loneliness and his desire to be with his friends, all he wants to do is follow Theoden, because he knows Theoden will go where his friends are. And I want to take a second here to talk about how Merry's loneliness is something that I think we've all experienced, and this feeling that Merry is describing is something that all of us know. Maybe not the courage that he has, or how he has like this overwhelming feeling of loneliness, but I think all of us have experienced this in part. And I was waiting for Tolkien, to be honest, to kind of give me some solution to the loneliness here. Tolkien is actually really good at that in his books. If he presents a problem for a character, not necessarily immediately, but he generally shows you how to navigate through that via his characters. One of the best examples of this was the essay that I wrote on how Saruman attempts to gaslight the company, and how I think Tolkien is essentially writing in that chapter the way that you shut someone like that down. So I was almost hoping that this was going to happen with Tolkien too, to get Tolkien's understanding of loneliness and how to deal with loneliness. But the longer I got to thinking about it, I actually think this chapter, when I read this for a second and a third time, I think I've kind of come to the conclusion that there really is no solution to the loneliness. And perhaps the solution is, I'll talk about this in a bit, but Tolkien might give us a solution here. And I asked ChatGPT, and it gives me like the typical answers, like go exercise and be social, but this is a different kind of thing that Merry is experiencing. It's different from just like a general sense of loneliness. It's almost just like a loneliness born out of his desire to be with his friends. Yes, that is loneliness, but it's more specific loneliness. I think all of us may have experienced that in a general way, but when we long to see our friends and our loved ones, and we just can't, this is the kind of loneliness that is more like a desire to be united. And I think we take this for granted with the technology that all of us have. And we all have like a Palantir in our pockets and our phones. We can call or video chat people that we love across the world. And I have to be honest, sometimes I actually think this can actually lead us to a deeper sense of loneliness. Maybe just from the absence of being physically present with that other person in real life. Gimli says this really well when he's leaving his beloved Galadriel, and he says, "Yet all such comfort is cold. Memory is not what the heart desires. That is only a mirror." I think perhaps that the technology that we have can actually give us a bigger longing and make the hole in our heart just a little bit larger, because there truly is nothing like hugging the person that you love and holding them tight and laughing with them, where you can kind of just see like the wrinkles in their face, and hold their hand as they laugh. Those are the things that I think Mary is really longing for. And so I don't really think that there is a solution to the loneliness here that Mary is feeling, other than just pressing on. And I think this is sadly the reason or the explanation that Tolkien is giving, that there's nothing that you can do. You just have to keep pressing on. And I keep thinking of Tolkien during Tolkien's time when he's in war, and all someone had was like a picture of the loved one they were fighting for. And so they just had to go to battle hoping that they would see them again. I think this is what Merry feels here. He wants to see his friends so badly, it's almost making him make a bad decision. I mean, I think the world of hobbits, I think they are the greatest race of Middle-earth people in all of Middle-earth. And I want to be one, but they're no warriors. Battle is not a place for a hobbit. Yet Merry desires to go to battle without regard for his own life, just so he can see the people that he loves and fight for those he loves. It is a truly beautiful thing here. And I think it actually shows his desire is making him even more rash, but it's also all the more beautiful. But Theoden's words are what hurt me in this chapter. As it goes on and it says, "Speak not words of omen," said the king, "for there may be more roads than one that could bear that name. But I did not say that I would bid you ride with me on any road. Good night." Merry cannot have that happen. And so he falls asleep, and the book says this, "I won't be left behind to be called on for return," said Merry. "I won't be left. I won't." And repeating this over and over again to himself, he fell asleep at last in his tent. And so he wakes up a few hours later and is summoned to the king. And this is their conversation. The king turned to Merry. "I am going to war, Master Meriadoc," he said. "In a little while I shall take the road. I release you from my service, but not from my friendship. You shall abide here, and if you will, you shall serve the Lady Éowyn, who will govern the folk in my stead." But, Lord," Merry stammered, "I offered you my sword. I do not want to be parted from you like this, Theoden King. And as all my friends have gone to battle, I should be ashamed to stay behind." Now, I simultaneously love and hate Theoden in this moment. This is my conundrum. I want him to bring Merry because I would want Merry fighting on my side here. But I also love that he's trying to keep him safe. But at the same point, he shouldn't be trying to keep Merry safe, because Merry is a hobbit, or he's a man by hobbit standards. He's of age. And if he wants to ride to battle, then he should be able to do that. I mean, Legolas and Gimli have been sharing a horse this entire time, and you're telling me that you can't find one single man in the entire army who would want to take Merry with him. Come on, Theoden. So I just get so frustrated with him in this moment, but the next moment devastates me even more for how much Merry wants to go. "But we ride on horses tall and swift," said Theoden. "And great though your heart be, you cannot ride on such beasts. Then tie me on the back of one, or let me hang on a stirrup or something," said Merry. "It is a long way to run, but run I shall if I cannot ride, even if I wear my feet off and arrive weeks too late." How incredible is this hobbit? I mean, this is the depth that I was talking about. I think this is one of my new favorite lines. Merry is not just a brave hobbit, but he's so articulate, and I just feel so bad for him here that Theoden is telling that he can't be in his service anymore because no one can bear him. If any soldier said, "Tie me to the back of a horse so I can ride into battle," I am 100% getting that person to battle. That is the kind of person I want fighting beside me. And I think this whole chapter is just an excellent example of a book character who was actually done very well in the movies, in my opinion, but still just lacks the depth of a book character. He is so much better and well-rounded in the book. You can see his struggles in a way that I don't think you can actually see in the movie. And it just continues to amaze me how good of a character writer J.R.R. Tolkien is. I was nervous of that when I was first jumping into this story, because a lot of people say that, or not a lot, but I've heard that he doesn't have like the most in-depth characters. But I don't know why people are saying that, because I don't know if I've ever encountered more in-depth characters than this book. So, as always, that's all I got for today. Make sure you subscribe. If you like the video, or if you got this far, make sure you like the video. You can become a member too for some members-only content and some early access to videos. And as always, remember to look toward Numenor that was, and beyond to Elvenhome that is, and to that which is beyond Elvenhome and will ever be. I'll see you in the next one.